Power of the Elements is finally here, and with it, we all know that it's bringing very strong decks like Sprite and Tier Armament. However, what you may not know is that a very strong piece of support has been printed for MathMech. Now, if you don't know what MathMech is, it's a Cyberverse deck like Salamangreat and like Agnista, which puts up medium to strong going first boards with a minimal amount of cards required for the engine, as you can see here. But it also does what Salad and Agnista do so well in being able to build their board every single turn. The new card that comes out in Power of the Elements is MathMech Circular, a very, very strong card which completely redefines how you can play this deck, giving it a bunch of one-card combos and much more consistent ways of seeing an end board which is actually good enough to compete with the meta. I got this list from, I'll quickly check the name, Verdamter's Types, who got into top 16 in MBT's most recent Chalice Slime Monthly. We're going to go over the card by card. Again, this is his list. I've not built it, so if you have a problem with it, take it up with him. But I'm not going to lie, I was throwing cards together to try and build a list. Thought I'd have a look to make sure that I was on the right tracks. And it was pretty much card for card for what I thought you should be playing in this deck. So, the new card, MathMech Circular. This card's crazy. So, it can special summon itself from hand by sending a MathMech monster from your deck to the graveyard. That is cost. So this card Foolish Burials a MathMech monster for cost to special summon itself from the hand. Then, if another MathMech monster is normal or special summoned to your field while you control this card, you are able to add a MathMech spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Unbelievably powerful, since the best card in this deck is probably MathMech Superfactorial, which we'll get to shortly. This card's crazy, it solves so many issues what the deck has had so far, and I'm going to go over the rest of the cards and you'll kind of see how this card fits in. So the card you normally want to be sending off MathMech Circular is MathMech Signa. This card says if you control no monster in your extra monster zone, while this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You're not going to be banishing it because you'll be using Exec Seed material most of the time, so that doesn't really matter that that clause is on the card. And also it locks you into side verses from the extra deck. So this is just a free special summon back that you send off of the cost of Circular. We have Diameter. Diameter is a very strong card as well, and a lot of your opponents are going to be very angry when they don't read this card properly. So, when this card is normal summoned, you can target a level 4 Cyberverse monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but it cannot activate its effects. A MathMech monster that was Synchro Exi summoned using this card on the field as material against the following effects. Once per turn, during the turn this card was special summoned, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can negate that effect. So you're given this Direct Z monsters, and it is just an Omni negate. It doesn't have to detach, it doesn't have to have the diameter still as material. As long as the diameter was used for the summon of the card that you control, it just has this negate until the end of the turn that that monster was special summoned, which is really, really strong. We have MathMech Nebula. This is one of the bricks. You contribute one Cyberverse monster, special summon a MathMech monster from your deck. So it's basically Lone Fire Blossom. Unfortunately, there's not that many MathMechs that you want to special summon from the deck because most of them either want to use their effects to special summon themselves in the case of Circular, or they want to be normal summoned in the case of Diameter. This card also has the effect that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Cyberverse monster you control in the extra monster zone, and they can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn. This is very good for going through OTK plays if you can't get to your update jammer, and if you just happen to have this in your hand or in rotation. Very, very strong. Next up, we have 3 copies of Addition and 3 copies of Subtraction. These cards basically do the same thing. They are able you to target a face-up monster on the field. They then lock you into side verses from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. You then special summon this card from your hand. It can't attack, and then it gives the targeted monster either 1,000 attacks or it reduces that monster by 1,000 attack. So they basically do the same thing. You can target a monster on the field and then special summon him and then modulate the attack and the attack points of that monster. Finally, we have a Multiplication. This is another brick like Nebula, but you kind of want it in your deck because you want MathMech names, and playing one each of this and Nebula isn't too bad because they do both have relevant effects for when you go for your OTKs. Multiplication allows you to target a level 4 Cyberverse monster you control. Its level becomes 8, which can be quite awkward for when you're trying to go for Xyz plays. But it also has the effect that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Cyberse monster you control in the extra monster zone. Its attack is doubled until the end of this turn. This is very good for comboing off with access code Talker. So you can make your access code and go like Chainlink 1 multiplication targeting access code, Chainlink 2 access code targeting a link 3, and suddenly you have a 10,600 attack point monster. If you made that with Update Jammer, it can attack twice, or if you use Nabla. So you have a very big access code that can punch very, very hard. We're playing one Mathmech Super Factorial. This is one thing I disagreed with in the list that I was copying. I was actually playing 2 of this, but I imagine the person who got a top 16 in the Childside Monthly has probably played this deck a little bit more than me, so I've cut it down to 1. This is obviously his list. This allows you to target up to 3 Mathmech monsters in your graveyard with different names and activate one of these effects. Basically, you can either use those monsters as a materials for a Synchro Summon, or you can overlay them for an XZ. You'll tend to be going for the XZ line because the XZ monsters are typically better than Final Sigma. We're playing 3 Signet Mining because we're playing a Cyberse deck. 1 Mathmech Equation, which allows you to target a Mathmech monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, it gains 1,000 attack. So this is a searchable Monster Reborn. You might as well play 1. 1 Corb of the Grave, again, needs to be panned. And then we get to play a massive suite of going second cards. We're playing 3 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Bell, 3 DD Crow, 2 Effect Veiler, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 2 Forbidden Droplet, alongside 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, which I imagine is the main deck mine out. We're then playing 2 Pot of Desires. The reason to play this deck is because the engine is so small and so consistent, you're just allowed to play so many going second cards. Like, going into this next format, a lot of people are moving away from hand traps to go for cards like Dark Ruler More and Forbidden Droplets and cards of that nature to battle sprites, since one hand trap doesn't do a lot against them. But when you get to play a volume of hand traps like you can in Mathmech, you're more likely to see like 2 hand traps. And if you're targeting your hand traps for sprite, with like the Infinite Permanences and the Veilers to go for the Gigantic Splight, or the DD Crow to go for the Ronin Toad, or the Ghost Bell to go for the Elf, or Ash, which is good in every single matchup. Opening up 2 of these is definitely going to be enough to be able to slow your opponent down so their board isn't as crazy as it would normally be, and this deck can OTK like nobody's business because it's a Cyberse deck and we have access to Update Jammer, Splash Mage, and the like. Side deck, again, this is the list from the top 16. And he's playing 3 Lava Golem, 2 Twin Twister, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 2 Dimensional Barrier, 2 Different Dimension Ground, 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance, and 1 Red Reboot. Side deck doesn't really matter, I just want to show you how to play the deck. I will note that Different Dimension Ground is a very, very interesting card to be playing this format. A lot of people are talking about it, and I can see why. It absolutely shits on Tier Element, and it's very good against Sprite as well. Anti-Spell, it's just IO. And having this removal to be able to remove, like, Totally Awesome and an Elf seems absolutely cracked, to be perfectly honest, and you can do a lot of your combos without your normal summon if you are able to get to Mathmech Circular or a bunch of other cards, to be perfectly honest. Going to the extra deck. So we're playing 1 Yugioh Mathmech Final Sigma. You've probably seen this in a bunch of decks. It's a Towers monster. It's Towers monster while it's in the extra monster zone. If this card in the extra monster zone battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts your opponent is doubled. This could also be very good for OTKs, especially when you're doubling the attack and giving it 2 attacks. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effects, you can add a Mathmech card from your deck to your hand. So, big monster, difficult to deal with, and if it leaves, it gets you a search. Most important monster in the extra deck is, I'm going to give this a good attempt at pronouncing properly, Prime Mathmech Albertian? We'll go with Albertian. This card has, well, I'm going to say 2 effects, but it's actually more like 4. So, on summon, you get to detach 2 to 4 materials from this card and activate the appropriate effect. Usually, you'll be detaching 2 and adding 1 Mathmech monster from your deck to your hand. However, if you detach 3 or 4, you get to add either a level 4 monster from your deck to your hand or a spell trap from your deck to your hand. You've probably seen this in a bunch of FTK combo videos, going into this with like 4 materials to search for an unsearchable spell that is absolutely broken. We'll tend to be going for 2 here, just to get our Mathmech cards, because they're all 4s anyway, so there's no real reason to go for 3. In theory, you could go for 3 if you have the right combo set up and maybe search for a Flying Sea or a Retaliating Sea or a Token Collector if those cards end up being popular, but I can't see them really being that good. The second effect, in parentheses, is you contribute 1 monster, special summon 1 level 4 Mathmech monster from your hand or graveyard. So it's Monster Reborn as well as a Searcher. So very, very strong. We're playing 2 of those. Next up is Prime Mathmech Laplacian. I'll go for Laplacian. This requires 3 level 4 monsters to make, and if a Mathmech card you control will be destroyed by card effect, you can detach 1 material from this card instead, so it has the ding effect. And it also has the effect that if this card is XC summoned, you can detach up to 3 materials from it and choose that many effects and resolve them in order, basically. So the first one is send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. Very, very strong. Send 1 monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. Pretty strong. And send 1 spell trap your opponent controls to the graveyard. Also pretty strong. So this is the monster you tend to be summoning off of your Mathmech Super Factorial, bringing back 3 monsters, exeing straight into this guy, and your opponent's turn you get to pop a card, rip a card out of your opponent's hand, and potentially pop a spell or trap if the board state is correct. And since you're regularly bringing back Diameter with your Mathmech Super Factorial, since most of your lines go through Diameter, it means that this monster will also have a negate in your opponent's turn, which is very, very strong to get all from 1 trap. We're playing Cyberverse cards, so we're playing Access Code Talker. We're also playing Appaloosa. You don't tend to make this in your first turn, but it's an option to go into off of IP. Playing Decode Talker Heat Soul, you can't make this in the main line, since you get locked into Link 2 or lower monsters, but it's definitely nice to have since it's a Cyberverse, and it just gets you to draw cards, and we're playing loads of hand traps that we can draw into. Transcode Talker and Update Jammer, they go with the Access Code Talker to OTK really easily, as well as the Splash Mage, which allows us to set up for these combos. We're playing 1 IP Masquerena. There's no Unicorn in this deck. I guess they didn't need it. I guess they're just using the IP Masquerena to go into Heat Soul or to go into Appaloosa. I imagine they're going into Heat Soul more often than not because you want to see those hand traps. We're playing 1 Cyberverse Wicked, and this card's crazy. So this Link Summon card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Mad. It's got just so much protection. And then Cyberverse monsters this card points to can't be destroyed by card effects. If a monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to while you control this monster, except during the damage step, you can banish 1 Cyberverse monster from your graveyard and add a Cyberverse tuner from your deck to your hand. For some reason, Diameter's a tuner. So you get to search this monster at the end of your combo just to make sure that you have gas for going second and setting up an OTK, which you can set up an OTK just off Diameter on its own, which is crazy. Next up, we're playing Link Disciple and Link Devotee. These are very good for link climbing, possible draws, and extension through weird boards. And we're also playing Lingaribo, which is going to stop our opponent from being able to imperm us or evenly us and that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a Cyberverse monster, it's a Link, we're playing it. So, I've got 3 combos prepared. We're going to jump straight into the first one. Oop, we haven't set this up properly at all, so we're going to throw those cards into the deck and grab out a Circular. So this card's the 1 card Circular combo. So we're going to activate Circular, and we're going to send 4 cost a copy of Sigma from our deck to our hand. This is going to allow us to special summon the Circular, and then we can use the Sigma effect in graveyard since we control no monster in the extra monster zone to special summon himself back. Since a monster was normal or special summoned, we can trigger Circular to search for our Mathmech Super Factorial. We can then overlay our 2 monsters to go for Albertarian, definitely not pronouncing that right, and on summon we get to use the effect attaching 2 materials to add a Mathmech Diameter to our hand. We haven't used our normal yet, so we can use Mathmech Diameter to special summon back either of our Mathmech cards in our graveyard, and then we can link one of them off for a Link Disciple, and link the other one off for a Link Devotee, since both of these require a level 4 or lower Cyberverse monster. We can then use the effects of Prime Mathmech Albertarian to tribute our copy of Devotee, which will allow us to special summon back a Mathmech monster from our graveyards, and trigger the Devotee to special summon 2 tokens since it was co-linked when it was tributed. We then link one of those tokens and Link Disciple away to special summon a Cyberverse Wicked, use another token to go for a Lingaribo, and then we can use our Mathmech monsters to go into an IP Masquerena. This, of course, will trigger the Cyberverse Wicked. You could have done it on the Lingaribo summon, I prefer to do it right at the end, and this allows us to banish our Link Disciple to add a Diameter for next turn. From here, we can set our Superficial, and in our opponent's turn, we can use Superficial to special summon out 3 copies of the Mathmech monsters in our graveyards, including Diameter, and exile straight into a copy of Laplacian. So we're going to be able to use Laplacian's effect here in our opponent's turn to pop a monster, pop a spell, and send a random card from our opponent's hand to the graveyard. Not only that, we also have the negation effect from Diameter still applied to our Laplacian, so at any point we can negate something our opponent does. On top of this, we also have the IP Masquerena and the Lingaribo, which is going to cause massive protection. We could potentially use these 4 monsters here to summon, or use these 2 monsters, say, to summon a Heat Soul underneath the Wicked to be able to get another search for another tuner in our opponent's turn. But more than likely, we're just going to go for Heat Soul or Appaloosa, depending on the matchup. So what happens when you don't open up with exactly circular? Well, as soon as I fast forward to when we have the proper cards in our hands, this is what we could do. So with this combo, it's going to be a 2-card combo, and it's going to be what happens if you open up just 2 Mathmechs that you can get on the board. So in this case, we're going for subtraction and addition. So subtraction and addition, of course, both have the same effects, where they can target a monster on the field and either increase or decrease its attack points by 1,000 and special summon the monster. So we're going to summon one and then use the effect to summon the other, and then we're going to overlay for our copy of Albertarium. From here, we can attach 2 materials and we can search for Circular. We can then use Circular's effect to mill for cost a copy of Sigma and special summon the Circular. We can then special summon back the Sigma, and we can basically do the same play that we did previously, searching for a copy of Superfactorial on the Summoner Sigma, and link straight into our copies of Link Disciple and Link Devotee. This is basically the exact same setup, except we don't have a copy of Diameter in rotation for the negation effects. But we're going to tribute and summon something back, and then summon ourselves 2 tokens, and go down the same line of going for a Cyberburst Wicked, a Lingaribo, and a copy of IP Masquerena with the Superfactorial. So in this setup, we don't have the Omni Negate. I'm sure it's possible to get to it if you have like an extra extender, but this was the best line that I could see to get to this board with addition and subtraction. Maybe I'm incorrect though, and if you can see a better line, please make sure to let me know. So we're going to use Sci-Fi's Wicked's effect here to search for the Diameter. We have unfortunately used our normal summon, so we can't go through a line with it yet, but we have it for next turn when we can set up and negate for our turn 3 when we're going for the OTK. Okay, so talking about the OTK, we're now going to go through the going second combo where we can kill our opponent with just 1 copy of Mathmech Circular. So we're going to use the Circular effect, as we've used so many times before, and send a Sigma from our deck to our graveyard, and then we get a special summon a copy of Circular. We can then use Sigma to special summon itself from the graveyard, and trigger the Circular to search for a copy of Mathmech Equation. Mathmech Equation, of course, is Monster Reborn. We can overlay our monsters for, I will remember this name at some point, Albertarian, and we can detach 2 materials to go for Diameter, basically going through the same line that we would go through going first. From here, we can normal summon our Diameter and special summon back one of our Mathmechs, and then we can link into a copy of... Oh, no, sorry, we're not using that monster. We use the Xyz monster, and we're going to go for a copy of Splash Mage. We can use Splash Mage's effect to bring back another copy of Diameter, and this is why we wanted to use the Xyz monster, because we want to go for an update jammer here, which requires 2 level 2 or higher Cyberburst monsters, and of course, an Xyz monster doesn't have a level. We can then link the Update Jammer and the Splash Mage away to make a Transcode Talker, and then use the Transcode Talker's effect to bring back the Update Jammer. We can then use the Update and the Transcode Talker to go into an Access Code Talker. We can go Chainlink 1 Update Jammer and Chainlink 2 Access Code Talker to avoid hand traps. And we put our Access Code Talker up to 5,300 attack, and it has 2 attacks from the Update Jammer. We also have 3 different attributes in Graveyard, which we can use to pop with the Access Code Talker. Not only that, we also have this copy of Mathmech Equation in our hand that we didn't have to use. I believe we are locked into only using 1 monster as an attack here from the effect of Mathmech Circular, so we can't use this to put more damage on the board, but we could have used this previously in the combo if our opponent interrupted us at any point to be able to get an extra monster on the board to be able to fight through. But yeah, this is 10,600 damage with 3 pops. Very impressive for a 1-card combo. Obviously, you'd have 4 other cards in your hand, but you could just imagine, like, if you had, like, you were going second and you had a 6-card hand, you have Droplets, Circular, and 4 other cards. You could Droplet the entire board, go through the 1-card line into an Access Code Talker, pop everything, and then attack our opponent for the game. So you can see that this deck is very, very competent, both going first and going second. So that's the last combo I want to show you. I'll go back to the deck here in case you want to look into it a bit further and see the particular cards. Yeah, I think this deck is definitely an option to be able to play this format. It does have the new deck sort of like advantage at the moment because a lot of people don't know what these cards do. So I wouldn't be surprised if this deck falls off later in the format. However, right now, I think this is a good choice for this format if you want to play on a budget. And it's definitely the side-verse deck that I would choose if I owns these sort of cards. I just wanted to go for Access Code Talk or OTKs. I think I would choose this over side-verse and Attic Nista. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and a comment if you have anything to say. It would really help us with the algorithm and boosting our channel. And if there's any other decks you want me to tutorialize, please let me know, and I'll get right on it. Okay, have a good rest of your day.